Education ministers have awarded £15 million, which isn't a lot, to try to tackle a systemic decline in language learning across England. The Department for Education will try to transform primary and secondary school language programmes over the next 3 years, with the focus on increasing opportunities amongst disadvantaged pupils.
Well, joining us now to look at this is Senior Lecturer in Languages at the University of Manchester, Dr. Alex Baratta. Thank you so much for your company this morning. So what is it about our spirit? Why do we struggle so... Why don't we want to learn languages? What's stopping us?
Well, I think at a broad level, and this is true of English speakers in general, I'm not trying to generalize, of course, but to some extent, we know that English is a global language. It's a lingua franca. We have varieties which have been around for a while: Indian English, Korean English, Singaporean English. And so the central purpose of language is, of course, to communicate. And if the perception is people will communicate in English, then why do I need to learn a foreign language? It might be seen as not quite relevant. I think also there might be very negative perceptions, though unfounded, that language learning is tied to boring, dry grammar translation exercises, when in fact there's all kinds of evidence from my own experience too, of doing more communication-based teaching, where they take you in the hallway and suddenly you're not in a hallway, you're in a post office in Germany or a train station in Madrid, and you have to provide the relevant dialogue. And finally, I think, somewhat ironically, because languages are so specific, we think of them in terms maybe of to communicate with people overseas when we go on holiday, or when they come to us maybe. But then we don't think more broadly sometimes that, no, it can also look good in a business environment to have a foreign language. Certainly Far East Asian languages are being studied more and more, Korean and Mandarin. Also it can be used in places like media, journalism and so on. So it's not just something that's static just for communication, whereas an English language degree, we might think more outside the box and more than just simply language per se. So I think it's a combination of factors. But having a language certainly on a CV, I know it's kind of cliche, teacher said a lot, but it does look good.
Oh, look good. It certainly does. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, one way to get students interested, they're likely to earn more money. Let's be perfectly honest. If they can speak Spanish or Mandarin, which are the other two big international languages, of course, at the moment, well, then they could earn a packet, frankly.
Definitely. And, it looks, like I said, it does look good, because especially if you are in a context where you can break out a foreign language that no one's expecting, and certainly right now, European language is very useful. Of course, they always will be, but so are the Far East Asian, like Mandarin and Korean and Japanese. And schools are reflecting this, universities and sixth forms in some cases. So it does give someone an edge to have a foreign language skill on their CV. And the students I look at, to be fair, a lot of them do have this. And they'll even say, one is proficient, one is native, one is moderate, but they are learning. And it is something that's just simply a CV stuffer, but it does have real world, transferability.
What do you make then of the Department of Education's plans to develop and roll out a new language programme? 14.9 billion, is it? Or million? It's not a lot of money, is it? It's not going to go very far.
I think it's a start, though, and it's a start in terms of having recognized that, language learning seems to be on the decline. Well, it is. What can we do to address this and get students interested in language? I mean, when I do give talks to schools, I don't know if I do a great job, but I'm not actually looking at languages per se. We're just looking at how language works. And once they realize that some languages put the verb at the end, some put it second, some put it first. Why do we swear? Why do we feel better? All these things which are connected to language from, Finnish to Tamil. That's a little bit different, but I think there can be some interest made if students are made aware of what the payoff is at the end, but also the journey, that it can be very interesting to see how things are communicated in a different language. Everything from word order to even words which don't translate into English. There's a good Korean word, which even if I had a whole hour, I couldn't explain it. Nunchi. It means eye measure, but it's very important in Korea. So these kind of things, and it ties in now with culture, with sociology, with anthropology, not just linguistics and language. So I think there's a lot of interest there that's built in. We just need to, tap into it.
Do you know what, Alex? What I find really, really frustrating about all of this is the fact that we all know adults, and we probably all, all of us tend to think, don't we, I wish I was better at language. And, you know, I've tried to learn Spanish and all the rest of it. It's much, much harder to learn as an adult than it is as a youngster. The younger, the better for languages. And so I almost want to grab these students by the collar and say, do it now, because it's easier. You'll find it much easier than I do.
Definitely. When we hit puberty, then there's a systemic drop-off in terms of language learning ability. But it's a myth, though, that, you know, adults, and in this case, even teens, can't acquire a language to proficient, if not fluent level. It just takes a bit more effort. Although, having said that, the ones who are learning their native language, we say it's so easy. But if you were to ask a 2 or 3-year-old, they probably couldn't tell us anyway. But it can be done. And of course, we already have language knowledge when we start learning a foreign language. We already know what grammar is. We already know what passive voice and past tense and subjunctive mood is. So we do have that head start in a way. We just need to get the motivation. And I think this is a step in the right direction, getting students interested, telling them what the languages can do for them, you know, making sure they have a payoff, as I said, so they can understand it's not just to tick a box, but it can be rewarding both financially and personally.
Yeah.
Dr. Alex Baratta, really good to have you on the programme.
Tack.
Danke.
Yeah.
What else can we say? Gracias.
Yes.
Any more? Merci.
Merci.
There you go. That's how good I am at languages, to the extent.
You see, Spanish, I can get by in Spanish just about.
Oh, can you?
But it's just about. I have to really think. I mean, in very basic terms.
He's a man of many talents.
No, I'm
he always
not
comes
really.
out with something.
But it's things, and probably the same in French, because I learnt that at school, so that's sort of stuck in my brain a little bit.
And has it retained up here?
Yeah, some of it has. When I was starting to learn Spanish, I wanted to say everything. All the French came back to me, weirdly.
It's good.
It's funny how your brain works, isn't it?
It is funny.
Ni hao is hello in Mandarin, but that's about all I know apart from Beijing Wanying Ni.
Oh, and what's that mean?
It means Beijing welcomes you.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's not
Probably can't use that
It's
too
not a particularly useful phrase, to be fair.
If you could know one language, which would it be?
Spanish.
Spanish.
Because it's the most useful for me.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I think it would be the same for me. Let us know what you think about that. Very interesting discussion. GBViews at gbnews.uk.
Yeah.